There are moments in a man's life when silence becomes more revealing than sound. Not the silence of withdrawal or avoidance, but the silence that comes from a mind no longer shaken by unnecessary noise. A silence that belongs to men who have outgrown the ordinary battles that consume the world around them. These men don't need to announce their strength, because their strength is woven quietly into the way they think, the way they move, and the way they respond. You might have seen such a man before. He is not the loudest person in the room, nor the one desperately trying to impress others. Instead, he carries himself with a sense of inner stability, as if he has already made peace with the things most people still struggle to understand. He's the type of man who does not chase validation, because validation holds no weight when your life is guided from within. This is the psychological foundation of the Sigma male, an archetype of masculine independence, calm awareness, and emotional clarity. He does not rebel loudly nor conform blindly. He simply follows the path that aligns with his inner principles. And because of this, he moves through life with a mental strength that is often misunderstood, yet unmistakably powerful. Mental strength, in this context, is not the ability to pretend that nothing affects you. It is the ability to understand what affects you and choose the most stable response. It is the discipline to walk away from chaos, not because you are afraid of it, but because your peace is worth more than your pride. It is the refusal to be controlled by the emotions or expectations of those who do not understand your journey. Many men try to look strong, but the Sigma male has learned to be strong, quietly, consistently, internally. His strength is subtle, almost invisible to the untrained eye, yet deeply felt by anyone who spends time in his presence. Today we will explore 6 signs that reveal when a Sigma male is mentally stronger than the average person. These signs are not loud, dramatic, or obvious. They are gentle signals woven into his behavior, his mindset, and the way he navigates everyday life with quiet mastery. Let's begin. Point 1, he does not rush to react. He observes first. A Sigma male's mental strength begins with a discipline that appears simple on the surface, yet is incredibly rare: the ability to pause. While many people respond to life in automatic, reflexive ways, reacting before comprehension, speaking before thinking, defending before understanding, the Sigma male allows space between stimulus and response. This space is where clarity lives. In that small pause, he gathers data, reads the emotional atmosphere, studies the intention behind someone's words, and considers the broader context. This practice is not passive. It is highly active, but inwardly active. Psychologists call this response inhibition, a sign of advanced emotional regulation. It allows him to evaluate situations without becoming fused to them. A Sigma male is not easily provoked because provocation requires emotional impulsivity. And impulsivity is something he has trained himself to transcend. He reacts slowly, not because he lacks emotion, but because he understands that the first emotional response is often the least accurate. When a conflict arises, he studies the tone, the timing, and the nature of the issue. He asks himself whether the matter actually requires his energy, or whether it is simply a temporary emotional wave from someone else. This ability protects him from misunderstandings, unnecessary arguments, and manipulative tactics. People who rely on emotional pressure or urgency find their methods ineffective on him. His calm observation creates a psychological buffer that shields him from harm and amplifies his strategic thinking. In everyday life, this looks like a man who listens more than he speaks, who pauses rather than reacts, and who allows people to reveal their intentions over time. It is a form of quiet mastery that slowly but consistently establishes him as the most mentally stable presence in any environment. Point 2, he protects his energy through selective interaction. A Sigma male's mental strength is also reflected in the company he keeps, or more specifically, the company he avoids. Many people disperse their energy without awareness, engaging in endless conversations, social events, and emotional exchanges that drain their mental reserves. The Sigma male takes a different approach. He is highly selective about where he invests his time and which people he allows into his personal space. This selectivity is not snobbery, it is stewardship. He understands that his emotional clarity and mental stability depend on how well he manages his social environment. Modern psychology confirms that energy conservation is a fundamental component of mental resilience. When a man interacts constantly without boundaries, he becomes overstimulated and loses the capacity to think deeply. A Sigma male avoids this by consciously limiting superficial interactions. He prefers meaningful conversations to small talk, deep companionship to group dynamics, an authentic connection to social obligation. He withdraws from environments filled with gossip, conflict, or shallow competition because such spaces erode the mind's clarity. When he does speak, he speaks intentionally. When he does engage, he engages fully. But when he feels his energy being drained, he steps back without guilt or explanation. This boundary setting is what allows him to maintain a calm psychological atmosphere around him. It gives him the emotional bandwidth to focus on personal growth, long-term goals, and internal development. Over time, this selective interaction becomes one of the strongest indicators of his mental discipline. He does not waste emotional currency on people who cannot reciprocate maturity, and he does not dilute his strength through social overexposure. His energy becomes a protected asset, and this protection strengthens him far beyond the average man. Point 3, he is comfortable being misunderstood. One of the most defining characteristics of the Sigma male's mental strength is his comfort with misunderstanding. Most people are deeply affected by how they are perceived. They adjust their behaviors and personalities depending on others' expectations. But a Sigma male follows a different approach. He understands that walking an unconventional path means being misinterpreted or even criticized by those who value conformity. And instead of resisting this truth, he accepts it fully. His validation does not come from being understood. It comes from understanding himself. This inner grounding allows him to remain centered even when others misjudge his motives or question his choices. Psychologically, this reflects high autonomy, low social dependency, and an internal locus of control, traits strongly associated with emotional resilience and long-term stability. He does not explain himself unnecessarily because he knows that over-explaining is often a subtle plea for approval. He does not chase acceptance because he understands that genuine respect is earned through consistency, not verbal justification. And he does not allow external opinions to penetrate his core identity, because he recognizes that the world often reacts out of projection rather than truth. In daily life, this strength reveals itself in subtle yet powerful ways. People may wonder why he prefers solitude, why he turns down draining social invitations, or why he listens more than he speaks. They may interpret his calmness as disinterest or his independence as arrogance, not realizing that his silence is deliberate and rooted in awareness, not insecurity. But the Sigma male does not reshape himself to satisfy their assumptions. Instead, he moves with quiet conviction, knowing that authenticity must be lived, not demonstrated. Over time, misunderstandings dissolve naturally when people witness his consistency, reliability, and steady loyalty. Those who continue to misinterpret him simply reveal their incompatibility with his path, and he allows them to fall away without resistance. This ability to stay unmoved by misjudgment protects him from emotional turbulence and shields him from social pressure. It enables him to pursue his goals with clarity, to maintain psychological independence, and to live a life guided not by the noise of the crowd, but by the calm, unwavering truth within himself. Point 4. He takes responsibility for his mental state. Another sign of the Sigma male's mental strength is his deep commitment to self-responsibility. While many people externalize their emotional experiences, blaming others for their frustrations, circumstances for their stagnation, or life events for their instability, the Sigma male looks inward. He understands that his mental state is shaped not by what happens to him, but by how he interprets and responds to those events. This internal orientation is a hallmark of emotional intelligence. He studies his thoughts carefully, observing the rise and fall of emotions as data rather than drama. He identifies patterns that sabotage his peace, and he corrects the behaviors that create unnecessary stress. He's aware of his triggers, his tendencies, and the environments that influence his mood, and he adjusts accordingly, rather than expecting the world to adjust for him. When he experiences anger, he asks what belief lies beneath it, what expectation was violated, what boundary was crossed, what insecurity was touched. When he feels stressed, he evaluates whether his expectations were realistic or whether he placed too much weight on outcomes he cannot control. When he encounters setbacks, he analyzes what he can learn from them instead of collapsing into self-pity or resentment. This level of self-awareness allows him to evolve continuously because every experience becomes feedback, not fate. He refuses to outsource responsibility for his life. No mentor, partner, employer, government, or society is responsible for shaping his inner world. Only he is. And because of this, he does not lean on excuses, nor does he wait for perfect circumstances to shape his future. He chooses discipline over blame, reflection over reaction, and accountability over avoidance. This mindset gives him an extraordinary level of control over his emotional landscape. He becomes unshakable not because life treats him gently, but because he has trained himself to respond with maturity, patience, and composure. He builds inner stability through conscious self-regulation, which makes him a grounded presence in chaotic environments. Over time, this internal accountability creates a deep sense of confidence that cannot be replicated externally. It is the quiet certainty of a man who knows he can rely on himself, a man who stands firm because he has forged his character from within, not borrowed his strength from the outside world. Point 5, he remains calm under pressure. Calmness under pressure is not an act for the Sigma male. It is a consequence of his internal discipline. When challenges arise, he does not panic or crumble. Instead, he slows down mentally, allowing himself to see the details that panic would normally obscure. Psychologists refer to this as cognitive deceleration, a trait associated with high-performing individuals who naturally shift into a slower, clearer state of processing when stakes are high. This mental stillness is what allows him to detect nuances others miss, the subtle intentions in someone's tone, the hidden variables in a chaotic situation, and the small but critical choices that determine the outcome. His emotional detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. He separates the facts from the emotions surrounding them, understanding that emotional noise often magnifies problems beyond their real size. By peeling away the unnecessary reactions, he focuses exclusively on the core of the situation. He concentrates on solutions rather than dramatizing the problem, which makes him highly reliable in crises. Where others bring confusion, he brings stability. Where others escalate tension, he quietly dissolves it with reason. While the average person becomes overwhelmed by stress, the Sigma male sees pressure as a test of his internal equilibrium. He understands that difficulty is not a personal attack, but an opportunity to sharpen his discipline. He responds with quiet competence, using logic as his guide, refusing to let adrenaline distort his perception. This calmness also disarms people who attempt to provoke or manipulate him, because emotional pressure has little effect on a man who prioritizes clarity over reaction. Manipulators rely on triggering impulsive responses, but the Sigma's stillness makes him unreadable and untouchable. His steady presence becomes a psychological anchor for those around him. People instinctively trust someone who does not break under tension. They feel grounded simply by standing next to him. Over years of introspection, restraint, and conscious emotional training, this calmness becomes not just a skill, but a defining trait of his identity. It becomes the quiet armor he wears into every situation, the unspoken proof of his inner strength, and the magnetic force that sets him apart from the average man. Point 6. He does not fear solitude. He uses it for growth. The final sign of a Sigma male's mental strength is his relationship with solitude. For many people, being alone triggers restlessness, boredom, or anxiety. They seek constant stimulation to avoid confronting their inner world. But the Sigma male embraces solitude as a sanctuary for reflection and growth. It is not a punishment, not a void, and not a state he tries to escape. It is a deliberate return to himself, a space where noise fades and the truth becomes audible. In these quiet moments, he refines his thoughts, evaluates his direction, and reconnects with his deeper values. While others drown themselves in distractions, he sits with his own mind long enough to understand it. His solitude is not emptiness, it is nourishment, a form of psychological detox that allows him to shed the expectations of the world and realign with his authentic path. Modern research confirms that intentional solitude increases creativity, emotional regulation, and long-term mental resilience. The Sigma male experiences these benefits firsthand. His alone time is where breakthroughs happen, where ideas form, and where emotional clarity settles. He does not depend on constant social activity to feel alive, because his sense of aliveness comes from within. Instead, he uses his quiet hours to cultivate skills, deepen knowledge, and strengthen the inner frameworks that guide his life. While many men search for validation in crowds, he builds confidence in silence. And while others fear being alone because it exposes their unresolved fears, the Sigma leans into solitude precisely because it reveals truth. This ability to be alone without feeling lonely separates him from the average man. It gives him clarity when others feel scattered, because solitude sharpens his focus. It gives him purpose when others feel lost, because solitude reconnects him with intention. It gives him strength when others seek reassurance, because solitude teaches him to rely on his inner stability rather than external approval. His solitude becomes a source of power, a quiet place where his mind sharpens and his emotional foundation solidifies. This inner fortress is not built overnight. It is constructed through years of choosing stillness over noise, reflection over distraction, and self-awareness over avoidance. In the end, the Sigma male's relationship with solitude is not merely a trait, it is one of his greatest advantages. It is the environment where he evolves, the space where he strengthens, and the silent forge where his mental resilience becomes unbreakable. And so, as we bring this reflection to a close, allow yourself a moment to simply breathe and sit with what you've heard. The signs of mental strength we explored today are not achievements to chase, nor standards to perform for others. They are quiet qualities that emerge naturally when a man decides to live with intention instead of impulse, clarity instead of noise, and truth instead of approval. If you recognize even one of these traits within yourself, understand that it's not an accident. It's a sign that you are evolving, maturing, and stepping into a deeper form of masculine stability, one that does not need recognition to be real. Mental strength is not built in grand moments. It is built in the daily choices no one sees. The choice to observe instead of react. The choice to protect your energy. The choice to accept being misunderstood. The choice to take responsibility for your inner world. The choice to remain calm when life becomes loud. And the choice to walk alone when solitude is what your growth requires. These are the quiet decisions that shape a resilient man. Not a perfect man, not an invincible man, but a man who understands himself deeply enough to move through life with steadiness, even when the path becomes uncertain. As you continue your journey, carry this reminder with you. Strength does not always roar. Sometimes it speaks in soft, steady choices, choices that build a foundation no storm can break. If these reflections resonated with you, stay connected, stay grounded, and continue developing the quiet power that already lives within you. Thank you for spending this time in reflection. Until next time, walk gently, think clearly, and honor the man you are becoming.